Well, joining us now to talk about this are Robert Fife, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Globe and Mail, Tonda MacCharles, Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Toronto Star, and Mia Rabson, Deputy Ottawa Bureau Chief for the Canadian Press. Hello to the three of you.
Hi there.
Thanks for having us.
So listen, as we said, we're getting this crosstalk, if you will, from the premiers, adopting different tactics as to how to react to Donald Trump and the tariff threat. You know, it makes me wonder, is the Team Canada approach that the Prime Minister is asking for, is that dead?
It certainly looks like it is. You know, you don't see the last time around, everybody was singing out of the same songbook, but that's not happening anymore. Doug Ford, the Interior Premier, is more on message with Ottawa, but you have Danielle Smith, the Alberta Premier, and Scott Moe, the Saskatchewan Premier, giving entirely different messages, particularly when they spoke about possible export tariffs on oil and gas, for example, or potash. And you know, I don't think you're going to get a unified message this time around, because Mr. Trudeau is in deep political trouble. The mandate is almost over. He's 20 points behind the Conservatives. I just don't see that happening. And you don't even really see a uniformity of message from the business community either. I mean, they're much more critical of the government, particularly on the deficits and the handling of the economy. So I just don't see that happening now.
Yeah. Tonda, what do you say to that?
I mean, I don't know that there was ever a Team Canada this round anyway in the offing. And I think that the stakes are much higher. Last time, during the NAFTA renegotiations, the Trump administration targeted two sectors, but this is a broad-based threat to the economy, and everyone is feeling it and feeling the threat differently. And yeah, I mean, there are political dynamics at play right now in the country that don't seem to align to have a common front. Maybe to all of our discredit. You know, it's too bad that that isn't the case right now. I think that any divisions in the country will be exploited by the administration, and we're already seeing a little bit of wedge politics being played there. So yeah, I don't know that it was ever alive this time around.
Yeah, well, and to your point about taking advantage of it, you know, Elon Musk going on to X this week, essentially calling Trudeau a tool. He'll be gone soon anyways, is what Elon Musk is saying.
Are you allowed to say that on TV?
Well, it's just tool. Tools, you know, tool time. It's used all the time. Mia, what do you say about this whole Team Canada approach?
Yeah, I sort of agree with Tonda. I'm not sure that it was ever there. I mean, the very first time the premiers and the Prime Minister met after the tariff threat was first made, Chrystia Freeland came out and she said, we need to be united. We need to be united. And it was very clear within 5 minutes that they were not united. Doug Ford came out, was clearly not on side. You do see signs here and there that they want some similar things. And you heard Chrystia Freeland today. She was asked with this idea of an export tariff, particularly on oil and gas. She seemed to hint that that's not where they're going. She's sort of, we need to have a unified approach. We're not going to do anything that sort of has some people offside. And that clearly would have those offside. So even though she didn't come out and say no to an export tariff, it seems like they're trying to still do that. But finding one or two things that everyone can agree on seems very, very unlikely at this point.
Welcome to Canada, right? So we're going to watch that very closely. But I also want to talk about the reporting that your paper's been doing, Bob, about the division right now between Chrystia Freeland and Justin Trudeau. Talk to us about that division. Is it basically Chrystia Freeland's pushing back on deficit spending?
Well, look, she made a commitment in the last budget that she would come in with a deficit of no more than $40.1 billion. Clearly, that's not going to be met now. The Prime Minister's office has been pushing spending, and the Finance Department did not like the idea of this GST two-month holiday or the $250 rebate. They thought it was economically unwise. In fact, it was described to me by people in the Finance Department as both embarrassing and stupid. And she's now, and then we know that they're now talking to Mark Carney, the former Bank of Canada, Bank of England governor, about coming back into government. And now we're hearing rumors right after the Monday economic statement that there's possibly going to be a cabinet shuffle on Wednesday. And I think that cabinet shuffle depends on whether Mr. Carney decides whether he wants to join the government. Why he would want to join the government, I don't understand. But so I think she's hanging by a thread. And But we've seen this movie before. I mean, Bill Morneau resisted spending from the Prime Minister's office, and he was pushed out in a very humiliating fashion. And this seems to be the same thing that's going to be happening to Ms. Freeland, who, by the way, has been a much more loyal soldier than Mr. Morneau.
Yeah, well, in fact, today in the news conference, she was saying that she was
teared
just
up.
happy.
She basically teared up when
yeah.
she was asked that question.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you make of this division that we seem to be getting, not only with these two individuals, but within Cabinet overall?
Look, Bob can speak to their reporting on the Carney-Freeland tensions. The rumors of a cabinet shuffle have been ongoing all fall, and the last I had heard, possibly January, but maybe it will happen next week. They're long overdue for one, but will a cabinet refresh achieve anything other than replace some of the ministers, the 4 or 5 who are outgoing and the couple who've already left, and sort of redistribute the work? Will it put a fresh coat of paint on the government? I don't think so. They're going to count on the fall economic statement to do a little bit of that work, but it's late and the polls are pretty hard to reverse right now. So I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but Trump is a huge challenge for this government. I don't think even in waiting this long it makes any difference. I don't think any one minister or several ministers are going to have a tighter relationship with any one or several cabinet appointees of Donald Trump. That would actually change things right now. So I think the challenge for the Trudeau government, the biggest challenge, is the Trump administration and its the fallout for this country. And whatever they can do to make that better, sure. But I don't know that a cabinet refresh is going to do it.
What do you think, Mia?
I think there's tension around any table that this government is at right now, and they've been down 20 points plus in the polls for more than a year. There's a lot of infighting. You always see it in any political party. When things are going well, everyone gets in line. When things aren't going well, things start to fall apart. And things haven't been going well for this government for a very long time. And everything that they're trying to do doesn't work. I mean, even the recent GST holiday that they introduced, they got 0 bump from it. They got no bump from Trump winning the election in the United States that they maybe had hoped that might help them. No matter what they do or what happens, they can't seem to get any kind of traction, and that is causing a lot of unhappy people, a lot of people questioning everything, and when nothing is working, the knives come out. I mean, it's sort of natural. So the infighting, it's not just between the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister, if that's happening.
And for this government, I mean, unlike previous changes and when there's been a change within the party, there's no obvious successor at this point to Mr. Trudeau. Even Mr. Carney's political skills, one can wonder how polished they will be if he just arrives on the scene. So, yeah, I think that they don't have a silver bullet that's going to help them at this point.
Yeah, well, you openly question why would Mr. Carney want to be involved with this government in this moment in time. But if his leadership aspirations are true, wouldn't it make sense that he has to have some skin in the game and join at some point, particularly when the party's in trouble?
That makes the only logical sense. Has he cut some deal with the Prime Minister that maybe he's going to take a walk and he will come in and try to run for the leadership? I mean, I don't know that, because Mr. Carney himself and even now people close to him are all shutting down. So something is going on. If he does come in, look, he's an enormously talented person, but whether he has the political skills, I don't know. And whether it's going to Tonda's point, what could possibly save this government? It doesn't seem like anything can, because I think Canadians have made up their mind that it's time for a change, and that is the very, very, very difficult thing to overcome.
The only thing I would say is that we all need to bear in mind that everyone's responding to a perceived threat, and the perceived impact of a threat. And yet, we'll see in hard terms over the next several weeks, go into January and February, what Trump actually does. If he goes across the globe with these kinds of tariffs, punching at allies and enemies alike, and the response, and then how the government and all the premiers do manage to respond to that threat in very concrete terms. And so we always say a week's a long time in politics. The next 6 months are going to be an eternity in politics, and I think it bears waiting to see how some of that plays, and politically how some of it plays. Will Mr. Poilievre be more adept at dealing with those threats? That's also a question I have.
Yeah, I also wonder about how real the threat is, because Donald Trump was on CNBC this week, and he basically said,
I want to make a deal.
Yeah, or sorry, it was Meet the Press. It was one of the two. But he basically said, I like tariffs because they're good, but he also likes tariffs because it allows for other things to come about. And I'm wondering if that really is what this Canada is all about.
It's his sledgehammer.
This is his party, and he is. We are living his dream right now. We are playing everything that he wants. The reaction, the focus. The fact that people kind of forget he's not actually the president again yet.
Exactly.
He is still holding court at Mar-a-Lago, waiting for everybody to do his bidding, even though he's not been sworn into office. This is exactly what he wanted, but at the same time, most countries don't have a choice, because the United States, particularly for Canada, is that important. I think, 77% of our exports go to the United States. We don't have, there's just not enough other places for us to deal with that we can't respond to this as quickly and as decisively as they are.
But he has to be careful, too, because he won because Americans felt that they were falling behind economically.
Yeah.
If you start putting tariffs on and people start responding with tariffs back, that forces up the cost of living on Americans, particularly on the working class people who supported him. So, he talks a good game, but look, we never know with Donald Trump, but one would think that they also have to understand that there are repercussions on American consumers if he goes this route, because countries are just not going to sit down and take it. They're not just going to accept tariffs, they're going to respond.
Yeah, which is essentially what happened with steel and aluminum, right? So,
Well, and one of his big promises was to cut energy bills for households in half within 18 months. And if he puts a 25% import tariff on about 1/5 of their oil supply, that's not happening.
And a lot of Canadian companies are owned by Americans.
yeah, absolutely. And you know what that is, Bob? Our Trump card. Dad humor since 2017. Bob, Tonda, Mia, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.